Good morning. It's Wednesday, April 28th, and the United States is about to change again. You know that every 10 years a census is taken, and based upon the results of the census, states that have grown in population gain congressional seats. The Senate seats never change. Every state has 2 senators. But congressmen are designated to each state based upon the population. And the number of congressmen has been fixed at 435. So when there are population shifts, the number still remains at 435. But some states who have lost population lose a congressman or 2 or 3, and those states that have gained population gain a congressman or 2 or 3. And right now, as the situation stands, the states that we consider in the Sun Belt are gaining populations for a variety of reasons. Amongst them being many of those states have low or no state income tax. So as our population in this country is aging, many people are leaving the cooler states, the colder states, and going down to the Sun Belt because it's cheaper to live down there. And that makes very good sense to me. So here's a rundown of the way it's going to shape up for the next 10 years. Texas looks like it's going to be the big winner with 3 additional seats, followed by Florida with 2, then Arizona, North Carolina, Colorado, Montana, and Oregon with 1 each. Now that's according to the analysis by the Cook Political Report based on the census estimates. So it's not 100% certain, but I am very, very sure that that's exactly what's going to happen. New York, California, Illinois, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Alabama, and West Virginia are all expected to lose 1 seat. Now, if we take a look at this, the shift in seats to such states as Texas and Florida, where Republicans control the state house, these shifts could be enough to erase the Democrats' razor-thin majority in the House. So I can say categorically that that's bad for the Democrats. And it remains to be seen how good or bad it will be for the country. The Republicans in these states have engaged in aggressive gerrymandering, meaning that they are going to control districts all the time so that they can keep sending the representatives that they deem appropriate to their causes on to Washington and to the state legislatures. Now, I don't believe in gerrymandering. I think that the distribution of people who live in a state should be decided by equal population in each region so that the voting turns out to be what I will call, for lack of a better term, democratic. Now, I don't know if you remember this case that came up before the Supreme Court. It was in 2019 that the Supreme Court ruled that federal courts have no power to restrict political gerrymandering. But racial gerrymandering is another thing. You cannot gerrymander the districts based upon race, but you can gerrymander it for any other political reason, but not for race and not for ethnicity. That remains unlawful, and I don't see any difference in one form of gerrymandering versus another form of gerrymandering. Now, this data is being released later than usual, actually 4 months later, because of the chaos that has been created in this country by the pandemic. And the Census Bureau had to painstakingly go household by household last year in order to gather all the census data. So it was a difficult task in a difficult time. And they're being very careful with the information that they are going to provide. And rightly so, because as I said before, because of what can happen and the gerrymandering, etc. And the states use the census data to redraw the lines for congressional districts and state districts, for state legislative districts also. So this information, which many of us probably take pretty lightly, is critical to the way this country is going to function for the next 10 years at least. And the Census Bureau has to make sure that they got it right. And as you know, illegal immigrants and things like that have thrown monkey wrenches into many things in many people's heads as to whether or not everything is legit in this country. And then there's always those who think that the dead are voting. And I don't know too many dead people who have had the time to vote. So in any event, the census work is a critical piece of our democracy. And we are going to see changes in this country very shortly based upon the results of this census. And I'm not so sure that those changes are going to do us much good. Because as we all know, this country is divided, severely divided. And I don't know whether or not this census is going to change the division, or maybe it's going to change the winners. Maybe there will be a major shift toward the Republicans because of these changes. And a major shift will not be real major in terms of volume, in terms of the number of bodies, because it only takes about 5 or 6 bodies to create a major shift. And since bipartisanship has basically disappeared, this shift is not going to do any good for this country in my mind. So we'll only have to wait and see. We, the public, will only have to wait and see what happens because of our population shifts. Now, wouldn't it be nice if because of the population shift, maybe gerrymandering would disappear? But you and I know that could never happen because those in power want to stay in power and they will do anything to stay in power. As we saw with these changes to all the voting rules in all the states that were upset because Donald Trump didn't win the election and because the election didn't go the way they wanted it to go. And so they changed all the voting regulations. And now we're going to have several more states that might be changing voting rules because they will have more representatives than they had before. So I hope you get the general idea, and we'll see what happens. But I don't think it's going to be good. So I'll see you in the morning. Bye.